Welcome, I'm the dentist. In our Dent Agenda, we will be continuing the first chapter, History Taking and Examination, Part 4, Tooth Notation Systems. These are the parts of Chapter 1 video series. And here is the detailed content, and these are the points included in this video. Tooth notation. The tooth notation systems that are commonly used are the FDI, or also known as the ISO system, Palmer-Zsigmondy system, Universal or American system, European system, and letters and numbers, or called alpha and numericals system. The first one is the ISO system by the World Health Organization. It is also called the FDI for the World Dental Federation notation. ISO stands for International Standards Organization. It's a two-digit numbering system. It uses the first digit to represent the tooth quadrant. Number 1 for the upper right, number 2 for the upper left, 3 for the lower left, and 4 for the lower right quadrant. The second digit represents the number of the tooth, starting from the midline of the teeth and continuing distally. For the permanent dentition, the ISO or the FDI system gives number 1 for the upper right quadrant and then number 1 next to the first one, indicating central incisor, number 2 lateral incisor, number 3 canine, and so on till the number 8 for the third molar. The numbers of the teeth are repeated for each quadrant. The difference is only the number for the quadrant. For the primary dentition, the quadrants are continuing after the numbers of the permanent dentition. So the upper right gets number 5, the upper left gets number 6, the lower left gets number 7, and the lower right quadrant gets number 8. So when you see the number of the tooth starting by 1, 2, 3, or 4, you know it's a permanent dentition. And when you see it starting with 5, 6, 7, or 8, you know it's primary dentition. And again, teeth are numbered from 1 to 5. 1 for the central incisor, 2 for the lateral incisor, 3 for the canine, 4 and 5 for the first and second primary molars. Here it is again. Also, you not only knowing the dentition from the first number on the left, but you also know which quadrant it is. If the left number is 1 or 2, you know it's the upper arch in the permanent dentition. And if it's 5 or 6, you know it's the upper arch in the deciduous dentition. And the same for the lowers. The notation is pronounced 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 3, and so on. And for the upper left quadrant and the permanent teeth, you can pronounce it 2, 1, 2, 2, 2, 3, and so on for all the quadrants. So you firstly say the number of the quadrant followed by the number of the tooth. You never say 11, 12, 13. You say each number separately. The second system is Palmer-Zsigmondy notation system. It was originally termed Zsigmondy after the Hungarian dentist Adolf Zsigmondy, but now it is called Palmer. and it is mostly used in the United Kingdom. The permanent teeth in this system are numbered from 1 to 8 for each quadrant, and the primary dentition are designated using the Romanian numericals 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, starting from the midline and continuing distally. Of course, the old method by using Romanian numericals is the Zsigmondy method. Palmer changed that to the letters A, B, C, D, and E for the primary dentition, 5 teeth in each quadrant. Here it is. The permanent dentition designation giving the same number for the teeth in each quadrant, starting by 1 for the central incisor and reaching 8 for the third molar. Here, Palmer's notation uses the corner symbol to indicate right or left sides, upper or lower arches. And for the primary dentition, it uses the letters A to E for the teeth in each quadrant, and again uses the corner symbol to indicate right or left sides, upper or lower arches. As you can see, these are the corner symbols, and the numbers indicate the position from the midline or which tooth it is. We can take a couple of exercises. For example, you know now that the left and right, upper and lower are indicated by the corner symbol, and then the number or the letter indicates the tooth. If you're talking about maxillary right central incisor, you know now that because it's maxillary, you will use the two corner symbols indicating the upper. To make it easy, look at this cross shape or the grid shape of the 4 quadrants. Imagine that you're talking about this tooth. Then you need to use its corner symbol. So these two symbols indicating the upper arch, but this one is opened from the left, your left, so it indicates the right of the patient because we use them according to the patient's sides. And this corner indicates the upper arch, and because it's opened from your right means it's the patient's left. So if we're talking about a right maxillary central incisor, we will use this symbol, upper right of the patient and number 1. If we're talking about the left, then it will still be the upper, but left of the patient and number 1. If we're talking about the lower right primary canine, lower, so this corner indicates lower. Right, it's opened from the right of the patient. Primary canine, so you know that now you're using letters, not numbers, and canine is the third tooth indicated by the letter C. Lower left primary first molar. Here is the deciduous grid dentition. Lower, so you're using one of those two corners. Left, it's the left of the patient, so it's opened from here. First molar is D, so you write the letter D. Third system is the universal numbering system. It is most commonly used in the United States, and that's why it's also called the American system. For the primary T, we use the uppercase letters from A to T. The letters are going continuously, starting from the upper second right molar and ending by the lower right second molar, as you can see here. For the permanent teeth, we use the numbers 1 to 32, again starting from the upper right third molar, continuing to the midline, then the left quadrant, then the lower left quadrant, and ending on the lower right third molar. As you can see here, the universal numbering system for the permanent dentition, starting from the upper right third molar, giving it number 1, and then continuing to the midline, and then the upper left, and continuing to the lower left, then going to the lower right. And for the deciduous or primary dentition, you start by the letter A for the upper right second molar, ending by letter T for the lower right second molar. Also, there is an alternative system for the primary dentition. It uses a continuing numbers, not letters, starting by 1 for the upper right second molar, ending by 20 for the lower right second molar. But you need to differentiate between the numbers because we use them for the permanent dentition in the system, and that's why the lowercase letter d is written next to the number to indicate that it's a primary or deciduous. D stands for deciduous dentition. The fourth system is the alphanumeric notation, or letters and numbers notation. It is used to ease up the difficulties that the grid notation might put. So you might need to practice indicating the quadrant by abbreviating the arch and the site by the first letter. In this system, you refer to the upper right by UR, upper right in the uppercase, upper left by UL, upper left, lower right by LR, lower right, and lower left by the LL, lower left. After we have indicated the arch and the side, we write the number of the tooth next to these two letters. For the permanent dentition, we use the numbers from 1 to 8, starting with the central incisor up to the third molar. And for the deciduous dentition, we use the letters A to E, and both starting at the midline, as I showed. We can take a couple of examples. The permanent, so you know that you're going to use numbers, not letters. Left maxillary or left upper, so you know you're using the arch first, then the side. You use U for the upper and L for the left. First molar is number 6, so it's UL6. Permanent upper right, second premolar. Permanent, so you're going to use numbers, not letters. Upper right, UR. Second premolar is tooth number 5 from the midline, so it's UR5. Lower left, second deciduous molar. You know now that you are going to use a letter, not a number, because it's a primary tooth. Lower left, so LL. Second deciduous molar is tooth E, so it's LL E. The fifth system is the European system. The European system for the permanent teeth, using numbers from 1 to 8, indicating the teeth starting from the midline and going to the third molar. And then it uses the plus and minus signs to indicate the arch. So the plus for the upper arch and the minus is for the lower arch. Now we need to indicate the side. It is indicated by the position of the sign. If the positive or the plus sign is right to the number, it means it's the right side of the patient. And if the plus or the minus is on the left of the number, it means that it's the left of the patient. Again, for the deciduous teeth, still using the numbers 1 to 5, starting with the central incisor and ending by the second deciduous molar. The plus or the positive sign is for the upper arch, and the minus or the negative is for the lower arch. Putting the symbol on the right of the number means that it's the right side of the patient. Putting the sign on the left of the number means it's the left of the patient. Now you might be thinking, now we know that the numbers are for the teeth, the plus or minus is for the arch, and its position is for the side. How can we differentiate between the permanent and deciduous teeth? A 0 is placed on the left of all the numbers to indicate that it's a deciduous tooth. Lastly, we will talk about an interesting part, which is the notation used by the paleoanthropologists. These are the scientists included in studying the origins and the development of old creatures. In this system, the upper teeth are denoted I1 for the first incisor, I2 for the second incisor, C' for the canine, premolar 3 and premolar 4 for the first and second premolars, M1, 2, and 3 for the first, second, and third molars. The lower teeth are I1 for the first incisor, I2 for the second incisor, C' for the canine, premolar 3 and 4 for the first and second premolars, and M1, 2, 3 for the molars. Left or right must be specified individually. The reason why the premolars are labeled PM3 and PM4 is that in the earlier primates there was 2 other premolars between them and the canines, so there was PM1 and 2 before. An important reminder: to prevent uncertainty, teeth may be indicated using more than one notation system, particularly when referring for an extraction. That way, you'll make it less likely for the incorrect tooth to be needlessly extracted. So, to prevent ambiguity, if you're referring a patient to extract the upper left first premolar tooth, you can designate it using the ISO or the FDI system as tooth 2, 4, 2 for the upper left quadrant and 4 for the premolar, first premolar, or using the UL4 indicating the upper left fourth tooth, which is the first premolar, in the alphanumeric system. In that way, you'll make sure that if the referred to dentist is not familiar with one or another, that information will be referred correctly. Thank you, and I would appreciate it if you subscribe to my channel.